I got to be honest with you guys. What Kamala Harris is looking to do is literally execute big time on the greatest wealth transfer in American history. We've been talking a lot about this, but I want to hear from Kevin O'Leary. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about how this is going to directly impact the middle class. And the thing is the Democrats are largely behind Kamala Harris because some of the wealthiest investors, some of the wealthiest business owners are funding the Democrats. And if you think they're funding the Democrats and at the same time they're going to lose money, you guys have another thought coming. So let's hear directly from Kevin O'Leary here.
Chairman of O'Leary Ventures and Shark Tank investor. Kevin, great to see you. Thank you for being here. I know you're non-political. You just want common sense to prevail no matter what party. But if you think like a Democrat, you think the solution to that problem is what? More government spending. And Kamala Harris has come out with her housing plan, or one of them. One of them includes price controls for people who have rental property. But $25,000 for new home buyers, how do you think that would affect the housing market?
Well, I'm in the real estate market. I'm pretty familiar with what's going on there. And I wanted to add one element to this. I have over 54 portfolio companies and men and women CEOs. Some are Democrats, some are Republicans.
First of all, what I
we
want to
need
bring
policy.
up is the fact that we've seen something like this before where there was an influx of money into the market. We saw this with stimulus checks. When that was issued, everybody got free money. Everybody got a lot of checks. Thousands of dollars hit millions of Americans' bank accounts. And shortly thereafter, we saw the biggest explosion of inflation ever. What do you think would happen if 10 times the amount, 20 times the amount of money were to hit the bank accounts of millions of Americans in the housing market? We're talking not $1,000 or $2,000 checks going to people's bank accounts. We're talking potentially $25,000 to each American bank account that's thinking about buying a house. You think that we've seen an explosion in the asset values of real estate in the last 3 to 4 years? I mean, granted, the return on investment has been tremendous for those who already own real estate, but for those who don't own real estate, the idea of the American dream has become almost impossible at this point because of how much more expensive homes have become. So I know it sounds like a good idea, and I know we're gonna hear from Kevin O'Leary, and I know it sounds like a good idea, but if everyone got an extra $25,000 to be able to buy a house, what do you think is going to happen to the price of real estate in comparison to the fact that we know what happened after everybody got a $1,000, $2,000 check already?
What we pursue is to understand policy so we can make our plans about how we're going to invest in quarter two, quarter three, and onwards next year. We're desperate for policy. We really need it. It's the same thing in the real estate market. I need to understand what's going to change on cap gains on taxation, particularly important when I syndicate $1 billion worth of debt or equity in a real estate project. I'm doing data centers these days. They're up to $3 billion for each campus. We're all waiting for policy because there's a 50-50 chance that Harris is the president. I'm okay with that. I just need to understand what's her policy. And I've never seen a candidate in my life that doesn't do live interviews with the press. I mean, this is unprecedented, where they would ask those questions. I'm very uncomfortable about it. I'm very vocal about it. I've been saying, come out wherever you are and talk to the press live.
Well, to get policy, though, you have to ask the right questions, and you have to know what the problem is. The problem with housing, I'm going to simplify it, correct me if I'm wrong, because you know a lot more about it than I do, but the housing problem that we have in the United States, the thing that's jacking up the prices, of course, interest rates are another matter, but is shortage. We have a shortage of supply. A lot of it has to do with the pandemic and other things, but if you have a shortage problem in housing, is this the right way? Is this the right policy, this $25,000 deal to deal with it?
Now, first of all, I can already tell you, I mean, this is just basic economics. We already have a shortage problem, and this is largely driving up the prices of housing. The demand is strong. Well, it's a little bit weaker because interest rates have increased quite a bit. But the bigger issue beyond the interest rates is the shortage problem of inventory for housing. So if all of a sudden everyone's got an extra $25,000 to spend, we still haven't fixed the supply problem. So all of a sudden, the shortage that we have is going to get exacerbated. It's going to get worse, and it's going to make housing prices go higher. But that's just my own personal take on this. I'm going to let you guys hear from Kevin O'Leary, and let's hear what he thinks is going to happen in the future.
No, that's beyond insane. Think about it. You have a shortage. You then flush more helicopter money from the sky. You cause inflation, because if you're the seller of a house and you've got 15 bids and you know that person has just received $25,000, you up your price, $25,000. The price just went up. Of course that's going to happen. Here's why we have a shortage. Number one, we had such low interest rates for such a long time where mortgages were sort of just below 4%, and they're only halfway through the system. So you've got millions of people with mortgages that are 3.7, 3.8 that don't want to sell for another 3 years. They're not selling because they don't want a 7.2% mortgage. That supply is off the market. The other insidious problem, and California is a good example, the policy on regulation is so punitive to set up a tract of land to build housing that many people don't even do it. I don't even invest in real estate in California or in New York. It's impossible to get the permits. And the craziness about it is it's really holding back pricing, because up to 40 to 50% of the embedded cost of each house is the regulatory cost of getting through the process.
Wow.
How insane is that?
Right.
So somebody has to deregulate that. That's how you're going to get more supply on the market. We have massive problems on supply, but $25,000 free helicopter money is insane. That's a crazy notion that will never happen.
Yeah.
Never happen.
Well, here's another bit of insanity for you. One thing we know about price controls, they always cause shortages, because in a free market, people won't produce for less than nothing. You just can't do it. So price controls. Now, the way she thinks she's going to increase rental properties is through federal price controls of rental. I mean, it's if that doesn't cause a shortage, I don't know what would.
No, there's a huge problem with that. And here's what happens to a price control building. No capex, no maintenance. It starts to fall apart. There's no incentive for the landowner or the person who built the building to ever spend another dime on it. They just slowly crumble. That's Soviet-style pricing. If you went in the late 80s and looked at in the Soviet Union, I was a software salesman then, and I would go into these buildings in controlled regions of the USR code on controlled rents. You would turn the knob and it would fall off the door.
I'm
not kidding.
I was there too. I remember.
So you can't have this idea ever work in America.
Yeah.
Controlling prices just doesn't work. It distorts market.
Not to interrupt Kevin O'Leary, because he's making some very valid points, but just my own personal take. I'm from New York. Anybody who's ever been to the New York projects, look at any part of New York City apartments where there's fixed rent controls in place. All those apartments are shitty. They're falling apart. To Kevin O'Leary's point, there's no incentive if the landlord can't raise the rents. There's no incentive for the landlord to put any more money into it. So what happens? It crumbles. It falls apart.
Markets causes inflation, reduces supply, and the capex on buildings collapses. Everything looks like it just was made 100 years ago and falling apart. I don't know where these ideas are coming from. These are really bad ideas.
Well, Kevin, I want to squeeze one more in, which is the wealth tax, the taxing unrealized gains on everything. That's first of all, it's been tried more than a dozen times in Europe. Almost all of those have failed terribly. I think there's only one country that still has it out of more than a dozen. And you're taxing unrealized gains on not only stocks, but farmland, paintings, gold, whatever you have. Not only is it bad policy because it hasn't worked, but it also increases the intrusive power of big government. They have the right to go into your house, figure out what you have that might have gained that you have to pay more taxes on. I mean, Big Brother writ large, it not only doesn't work, but it also increases an intrusive state, which most people think is already too big.
Yeah.
Of all the suggestions I've heard on taxation, I find that the most offensive. Because just think about America. 62% of jobs are created by my people, small businesses that have between 5 and 500 employees. We watch the value of our companies go up each year, even though we're struggling to keep them going with all the regulatory environment and all the competition, but we do it. And all of a sudden, we get a tax bill. Let's say our business went from being worth $10 million to $20 million over 5 years. Where am I going to come up with $3-4 million cash that I don't even have, that I never had? I mean, when you really start thinking pragmatically about these ideas, you understand how bad they are. And by the way, the reason she has to answer to these on a live interview is the only people that matter now. This election is going to be decided by 100,000 votes. That's about it in 7 states. Those people are waiting for answers. Forget about the 42, 43 states that are already decided. They've already made up their minds.
Yeah.
Everybody that we care about now needs to understand, look, I'm a small business owner. I'm running a dry cleaners, and you're telling me I owe you $800,000 4 years after I open it that I don't have? I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
That just makes no sense
None at all.
whatsoever.
None
That's
at
so
all.
un-American. It's un-American.
It
Un-American.
is. And so with the intrusive power, I mean, the IRS is already pretty intrusive. Imagine giving it more power to go in and snoop around your house to figure out what they're going to tax. Kevin, we got to leave it at that. Great to see you. Thank you very much. All of this,
Oh my God, guys. Like, if you don't realize how dangerous this Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and their plan is for the American economy, for American wealth, I mean, if you're struggling financially now, I know it sounds like you're going to get a bunch of freebies from Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump, but Kamala Harris doesn't understand the economy. She doesn't understand business. She doesn't understand finance. She's going to ruin America. Anyway, guys, hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you on the next one.